Welcome to SideTrak'd. I am your host, Dennis Kaminsky, here today with my business specialist friend.
I'm not a business specialist. That's funny.
The term you used earlier was retail investor.
Yeah, or retail trader. I
Retail
do more
trader.
trading than investing, but yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. The reason that I have you on today is the world is getting crazy right now, and a lot of
Mhm.
people don't really understand what's happening, and you're
Yeah,
somebody I know who can explain that a little bit.
yeah, of course.
So, in
Yeah.
layman's terms, what has gone down in the last week in the most
Yeah.
compact and
Oh, okay, yeah. So, by the way, originally we were supposed to talk about what was it? The article I wrote a little while ago,
yeah,
but all of this happened, so yeah. So, to answer your question, what has happened recently? To in the most simple way possible, and you can ask me questions as I go, obviously,
I
but
absolutely will. I don't speak this language at all, so I'm going to need you to translate some things for me.
yeah. So what's going on is that Wall Street Bets, which is a Reddit group, which is usually for they're usually unprofitable. A lot of them are just they just specialize in YOLO plays with options trading, and
Is it a shit
um,
posting site with a few good bets or a few good investment tips thrown on there every once in a while?
yeah, for the most part, they do something called FDs, which like excuse the language, but this is just what it's called. It's like the faggot delights, which is they uh and we can explain more. Like you can look it up, but um what that is it's basically when you buy weekly options that expire out of the money. Um, yeah, I mean that's weekly options that expire out of the money, and they used to require the stock or the underlying to move like 20, 30% within like a few days, which statistically a lot of time will not happen unless you're in extremely volatile stocks like Neo or Tesla, and then it happens. But when it happens, you can
Yeah.
become a like a six-figure heir or a seven-figure millionaire. So it really depends. It's very rare, but most of the time, it does not work out.
So it's like
But
shooting a court shot backwards, and if you miss it, you lose a lot of money.
yes, yes. Like I think I told you earlier, my favorite joke on Wall Street Bets is when there's this one guy that lost. This is the typical mindset. So like I lost my mom's 401k, and I'm gonna try and make it back my dad's 401k, and they'll just YOLO it, right? But nonetheless, like that's not what Wall Street Bets is 100% of the time. There are some really good due diligence DDs, as they'll call it. There's some really good, great due diligence there. People doing fundamental research, doing momentum research on, you know, which stock to YOLO, and that's essentially what happened. A bunch of them got together. It started with a guy on YouTube called Roaring Kitty, who's now known as DeepFuckingValue. He's up like 50 million last I checked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for him, he did his due diligence on GameStop. He amazing due diligence. You can like go find this on YouTube. And he also pointed out that Michael Burry from The Big Short is also long GameStop, and so he'd been buying GameStop since like August. And he also realized that over 100% of the float is short. So 100% of all available shares are short. So I think up to 140%. And
Okay.
what tends to happen when what tends to happen when you start buying a company that's short or the stock keeps running up, the shorts have to cover, which pushes the stock up even higher, and they essentially hijack the stock. So that's what's going on.
It's an interesting topic because even in your simple description right there are probably a lot of people who are incredibly lost. And unfortunately, with the subject, that's just an inevitability, right? It's not
Yeah.
something that a lot of people fully understand. So some of the terminology is going to absolutely be going over my head as well. So I'm just going to kind of let you finish what you're saying. I'm
Oh
not going
yeah, just axe though, Brett.
to clarify because in some instances, I know it'll kind of hold up the conversation. But so you said a few weeks ago, they started pitching GameStop as a potentially good investment
Hmm.
through a lot of really good research. So how
Yeah.
did you get to the point that we are at currently today?
Oh, I mean, like a lot of this you can find online. Like, so do you understand what I mean by when I say like to short a stock to make money, and do you understand like how it happens and so forth?
Not
Or
entirely. You can.
okay, so this is the example I usually use, and there are like people online that can explain it a lot better than me. I'll like say
Ooh,
I like that. Is that like it says in the Latino Heat, like Eddie Guerrero, right? That
yep.
shirt you're wearing. All right. So say they only made 10 of those shirts in the world, and I work at the company that made the shirt. I work at the company that made the shirt, but I don't own one of them. And you are one of 10 people that has the shirt. You paid $1,000 for it, right? And I'm sorry, you paid $10,000 for it.
Okay.
But I know they're gonna make more because I work at the company. Like within the next 30 days, they'll drop more shirts. So the value of your shirt will go down, right?
Gotcha.
So because there's just more supply. So what I'll do is like I'll be like, hey Dennis, can I borrow your shirt for a video shoot, right? And then you just let me borrow it for free. I sell it for $10,000, and then next month it comes out that they're making more of those shirts, which I knew they would. And then I just go buy one for let's just call it like $1,000. I go buy one off
Real
online
quick.
for $1,000. I give it right back to you, and now I just pocketed $9,000. I made
Mm,
money from the value going down. It's short
interesting.
selling, right? The problem is, and this is what's going on with AMC, is if they don't make any more shirts, but I still have to go get your shirt back because I borrowed it from you. And then the person like, well, I'm not giving you your shirt back. Like, oh, the shirt I bought the shirt from you, so I'm not gonna give it back to you unless you give me 100,000, a million. At this point, you can name your price because, you
Yeah.
know, there's only so few in existence. But whatever happens, legally, you're the rightful owner, so I need to pay back to get that shirt right back to you. So I can pay up to $1 million, $2 million. Like really, the losses are infinite, and that's what's going on with GameStop. So how did we get to this point? A whole bunch of people on Reddit got together and started buying up the shares, and which drove the value up, and they started buying options too, which continues to drive up the price and momentum. And a lot of traders like myself are momentum traders. So as it starts moving up, they're all piling in there. And the thing that's going on with Melvin Capital, they went bankrupt. I believe the status for every $7 the stock moves, uh, Melvin loses seven. Melvin loses 1 billion. They start off at 13 billion. Right. So uh, when Melvin went bankrupt, then behind this, if you will, and a lot of people aren't selling because we're at that point where people are reflecting on 2008. People are reflecting on
Yeah.
getting 1,200 when every other country's paying everybody's continue to pay everyone to stay at
Yeah.
home, and then we get
Ridiculous situation.
$600, and yeah, so that's where we are. Either way, it I think we'll keep going up, but at the end, and I'm not a financial expert or a broker or
Yeah, of
anything,
course.
so
Yeah.
do your own due diligence. But I think we keep going up, but eventually everybody will have to sell, and you know, so they're going to shorten the way down regardless. But if we can get them to maybe 1,000, 5,000, like they'll go bankrupt in the process. Yeah.
One of the things that I've been really interested in this entire process is it's definitely bringing in a lot of first-time traders.
Hmm.
Obviously, you said you're not a financial expert, you're not a trading expert. Do you
You,
believe
you
that
legally
there
have
are?
to say that too. I'm not a
You said
financial.
what?
You legally have to say that too. Like I'm not a
Oh, I know.
financial
Otherwise, if something
advisor.
happened,
Yeah,
yeah,
you legally have to
exactly.
some shit like that.
I
Yeah.
am absolutely not a financial expert. I've never made more than $20,000 in a year, so don't listen to a goddamn word that I say. I'm sorry, Grandma.
Yeah,
You told me not to say GD.
that's
Um,
funny.
shit, out of luck now. Too late. Uh, no, what I was curious about though was because it's bringing in so many first-time investors.
Mhm.
Do you think that how likely is it that some of these first-time investors are going to be losing money in this situation because they don't necessarily know how to play this game and they're kind of
Mhm.
jumping along for the ride? And some people are going to know when to sell out, and some people are going to know kind of how to read what's going on a little bit better than others. So, do you think that as nice of a rebellion as this is, ultimately it could have negative long-term ramifications for people who don't necessarily know what they're doing?
Yeah, well, that depends on how many people are just like jumping in there, like YOLOing
Blindly, yeah,
essentially. Yeah, and I can imagine that's considered to be a lot of people. But the beautiful thing about the internet, and I'll say, I do think this is more than a trade. It's at the end of the day, I think it's grown to become a movement, and I do think a lot of people do realize that they could look. It's kind of like the Doge coin thing, right?
oh yeah, I'm
Like,
all in
didn't
on that.
didn't you say you made a trade
Yeah,
on
I
that?
did. Yep.
Yeah, right. And you lost money. How'd you feel about that?
Oh, I didn't lose money.
You didn't. You made profit.
I didn't make anything yet. I'm still holding.
Your bag holding, is it down or up?
Last time I checked, I mean, from where it was at, it's up a little bit, but It's not at 8
Okay.
cents.
Well, I think that
I'm also
that's
using this as an experiment right now because I'm new to this and it felt like a very low risk situation given what my entry price was.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, no doubt, like a lot of people will lose money.
Oh, I've
I
already
mean,
seen it.
look at DeepFuckingValue. Like, I've either, I think Wednesday, Thursday going to Friday, I think his net worth was like fluctuating
Mm.
either like $30 million or something like that, right? So like he's losing money too. There's a possibility everybody loses money. Um, yeah, people will be hurt from this, but at the end of the day, it's like I think I don't want to say the majority because I don't have any statistics or anything, but I'll say a lot of people do believe that like they're trying to stick it to the man. Like even
Yeah.
I'll disclose that I have a position in there, like a small position in there, and like um, I mean I like to get out profitably, but I understand that this thing could drop at
Yeah.
any moment. Yeah, and that's a big reason why I personally didn't hop in because um, historically, and we talked about this earlier, but
Yeah, a
you
little
know,
bit.
historically, I had done the same research, not to the level of Roaring Kitty, but I had done the same research and figured out. I was calling them float trades. It's something, I told you, like once they short to the bottom and the hedge funds start covering the trade, you just hop in and ride the momentum, get out. Like so, my first profit this year was BBBY, which is Bed Bath and Beyond. I
Mm.
first started noticing this could be a profitable trade when I saw Stitch Fix go to like 24 to wherever the hell it is now, based on shorts covering, right? I mean,
Mm.
Tesla last year was one of the most shorted. I think like damn near over 10% of Tesla shares were short. So not only were we making money driving the price up of Tesla, but it was also like shorts were covering, right? And that's where you get the Elon shorts and so forth,
Yeah.
right? So um, I I had seen like this isn't a brand new idea, right? It was just for me, I stayed away. Like to answer a question about people will get hurt, I stayed away from a long time. I saw this in at 17, and I stayed away for so long because I realized that like traditionally on Wall Street bets, speaking historically, like a lot of the trades are YOLOs. Like I knew it was a concerted effort where everybody's like it was well executed, but historically speaking, if we're looking at the data, like most people
Yeah.
lose money. So when they were doing, it, I'm like, I'm good. But now it's like it's more of a revolution. So like I do
Yeah.
understand I can lose my money, but at this point, this is for 2008. This is for everything else. So that's how I see it.
In your opinion, what's the long game? Not
The,
negative, a negative sense, like not the counter necessarily the movement, but what is the long game of the movement? To just hold out as long as possible and keep sticking it to them, giving it to them a little bit longer, or is there something bigger at the end if something like this turns out to maintain the level of success that it's had so far?
yeah. So I would say there's two aspects to this. There's the political side, and then there's the straight up um, market dynamic side. So
Mm.
I'll start off with the political side, and we can explore that a little bit more if you want. I do think there was something called hashtag Force the Vote a little while ago, which was Jimmy Dore and some of the founders of the Justice Democrats had realized that these are YouTubers, and they'd realized that with all they need to, because AOC at one point has said we can't even get Medicare for all to be a floor vote. So
Yeah.
just from Nancy Pelosi to bring it up for people to vote on it, like they won't even do that, right? So what he said was, well, now for Nancy to win Speaker of the House, she would need everybody in consensus to vote for her, or it would go back. Then it would become madness where anyone can just run, and then they'd be a new
Gotcha.
Speaker of the House, right? So all they needed was, I think there was around 15 Justice Democrats. They needed like, I want to say 13, or like they had enough Justice Democrats or otherwise the squad to say no to Nancy Pelosi to get unless I'm holding my vote until you offer me something, right?
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
where is this going? Like they didn't hold out their vote, and why, like there was a big debate like, wow, well it's not worth it, like it's not worth it to have Nancy Pelosi lose the speakership and so forth. But the thing is, like, even if Medicare for all didn't end up winning, like even if nobody nobody ended up voting for Medicare and it didn't become a law or anything, what would happen is in the next round of primaries and just literally in any debate moving forward, you can say, hey, Dennis voted against Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
it's a political tool.
I
It's a
stand by
leverage
that
tool, right?
position as well.
Yeah, right. So yeah, right. that's one aspect of it. And how does that compare? What's the parallel to this? It starts to expose that there's class warfare, and I mean, like the apparent class warfare that's going on. So this, like, the longer they hold, the more we see the bullshit with the mainstream media. So CNBC getting on TV, pearl clutching, like using terms that I can't stand, like the unsophisticated investor. Or you see Chamath Palihapitiya.
Means you're a poor person taking money from
exactly. So when a
stop doing
retail
that.
trader when a retail trader does the same thing, like it's like you're unsophisticated. There's this like William Malvin or something like that. There's this guy, this Secretary of State from Massachusetts, like was getting on talking about how the unsophisticated investor needs to be protected, and but like, I mean, I could go through a list of examples of basically the bullshit hypocrisy that they do, right? So this is just leverage. Like I remember, just to share my personal story, when I started trading, one of my first massive trades was back in 2008, December 24th, 2008. I had just started learning that we had like fiat currency. So I was basically like, I was taking the blue pill and starting to realize how things actually work. And we had a fiat currency. Like unemployment was at like lows, but at the same time, people had like 2 or 3 jobs. There were like all these inconsistencies in the market. I started learning about like quantitative easing, which is just a fancy way of when the Federal Reserve like prints money, right? So I was thinking like, oh, like this is a bubble, so I'm gonna start shorting. Like it's gone down, I'll start shorting. So I use something called inverse ETFs, which are highly leveraged. So an ETF is like a basket of stocks. So like anytime you buy your 401k, like it's anytime you like buy a group of stocks. So for example, like the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies by market cap. That so the ETF for that is SPY. So if you want to buy all of those companies, you just buy SPY, right? So to buy the inverse ETF of the SPY is to expect like when SPY goes down, this inverse ETF goes up, right? So basically you're shorting without like doing what Melvin Capital and what they're doing is just like borrowing the shares. I'm not borrowing it. I'm just shorting I'm just buying an ETF that goes up when the SPY goes down, right? Does that make any sense?
As much as it can for somebody who understands this shit. So you're doing a fantastic job explaining. Just there's some acronyms, and I'm like, okay, I know.
Yeah,
NASA.
exchange traded fund. Yeah. So I was doing that, but that's highly leveraged, meaning like if SPY, which is at like like 370 right now, if it moves down 1 point, I go up 3 points. So like I make $3 for every $1 it goes down, right? So I like put like 75% of my portfolio of this, and I was up like $3,000. I was doing pretty well.
You said in 2008?
This is 2018.
2018.
2008.
Okay, this is based off of what you learned from 2000. Oh, that's what I was confused about.
But my point is like,
how the fuck?
No, my point is when I was doing that, the following day, the Federal Reserve came out and said that they're lowering interest rates. And when they lower interest rates, that means people can lend, banks can lend more, people can borrow at low, interest rates. Right? So that made stocks shoot up, right? And for every $1 that the SPY goes down, I go up $3. It's inverse. So if it starts going up, I go down $3. So it started going the opposite way to the point where we went to all-time highs. And I was like, nobody stepped in to tell me, oh, he's an unsophisticated investor. Like we need to give him back we need to bail him out. Nobody came in and did that. When I was taking out a student loan to go to college, and they did a variable. The only one I can get was like a private loan. It was a variable interest rate. And like my dad explained, like, oh, this is bad. But, like it was the only thing I could get at the time. Like, we not have any credit history or something like that, right? So it started off at like 4%. And by the time I graduated, it was up like 12%, right? Nobody stepped in like, oh, he's unsophisticated. Like, he doesn't understand. But when the average trader, when the average investor starts making money, right? That's when they get mad. So this is what I mean by like, it's a long-winded way of saying leverage. The longer we hold out, the more the average person gets informed about this. So, like, even though CNBC is lying to people, at the end of the day, you have billionaires getting, like getting on there, like just so angry, like
I've
talking
seen
about,
the other
oh,
day.
it's Russia. I'm like, dude, relax. Like, like it's always Russia. But
No, it's
anyway,
Doge.
yes.
Correct yourself. It's a cute little fucking Doge.
Yeah. So that's one aspect, and the other aspect is like outside of the blatant market manipulation, which is another point of when we start making money, it's market manipulation. They market manipulate all the time, right? So
So we're being
anyway,
gaslit.
yeah, that's
They're
another word for it.
gaslighting
That's it.
everybody, right? They're
Yeah,
being assholes about things, and then when we do it, they're like, "Hey,
exactly.
listen, I think that sometimes when you get angry, you raise your voice a little bit." And meanwhile, like 30 seconds ago, they're like, "Hey, asshole!" Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. So one, we have like leverage to expose the longer we hold out. I mean, the whole world's talking about this, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
then
been
two,
incredibly big news. Yeah.
yeah. So two, um, again, for every $7 that GME moves up, they lose $1 billion. So Melvin Capital has 35 billion under management. So I mean, I think like with the stock going up to 5,000, which is very possible, the stock going up to 5,000, they like what they can stand to lose like 700 billion. With the stock at 1,000, they can lose like over like 150 billion around there, right? So um, the higher this, that's why there's all this pressure. Like you see the blatant collusion to drive the stock down. Like so using algorithms and literally every trick in the book. But
Yeah.
they're dealing with very stubborn people. Like diamond hands made of carbon. So if no one's selling, like the stock actually isn't going down, and they also have to do with margin calls. So for example, in the example where I said, I sold your shirt, the margin call is when you ask for your shirt back.
Gotcha.
So as the price goes up, their brokers are asking like, hey, I don't think you're good for this money, man. Like
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
$7, bro. So they have to cover. And on top of that, every day we hold, they're paying interest on that, right? So I don't know. There's a lot that can happen here. I do also I do think they'll make back their money eventually because at the end of the day, people will short. But I do think the Robinhood people would find a way to short too. But I mean, the Wall Street bets crowd would find a way to short as well. But interest. I mean, what is it? Implied volatility, which is that's another conversation about options. But think of
Okay.
options as the insurance on people's stock.
Okay.
Right,
Gotcha.
that's all it is. Like think of the way
Life
car
insurance.
insurance
Yeah.
works.
Health insurance, car insurance.
Options work that you're
Okay.
just insuring your stock. That's all it is. But premiums can go up based on how much. Like if you live in LA, it goes up. If you live in a city that's deemed as with high crime, your insurance goes up, right? If there are multiple reasons. If you're underage, or I'm sorry, if you're like not 21, or if they deem you
Yeah.
as young, the premium goes up, right? So
First time
that's the
driver
same
stuff
thing
like
with
that. Yeah.
options. Right? So they know that a lot of people are trying to, short this, or a lot of people are, trying to buy the calls, which is when you go up. When you short it, you buy puts. In this case, like premiums are up like 600%, which is like the most I've ever seen premiums be up. So they're very expensive. But either way, I still like they stand to make money from the stock going down. But I think if they just stop with the tricks, we could easily shoot up to 1,000. Easy. I think that's possible.
I was just getting ready to ask you that. Had they not put a cap on all of this, do you think that everything would have continued to steadily go up, or do you feel like certain companies were inevitably going to crash?
Define cap. What do you mean?
Well, I'm sorry. The restrictions on trading, primarily through Robinhood and stuff
Yeah,
like that, over the course of the last few days.
yeah. So I'm not defending Robinhood at all. I think what they've done is wrong. But to their credit, when you buy a stock, it's like you're buying it on margin. You don't actually like when you buy a stock and it instantly settles for you behind the scenes. What's actually happening is like Robinhood pays for it, and
Mhm.
then Robinhood pays for it, and then um, what ends up happening is like it takes a couple days for like the funds to settle, right? So what Robinhood is saying is that like doesn't make sense. It's like when
Yeah,
you Venmo me, like Venmo covers it, but like it it just takes a couple of days.
I understand. Like it's
yeah,
I used to work in retail, and it was a similar thing. When somebody asked for a refund, they'd come back like, "Hey, the money's not in my account
exactly,
yet." It's like it's going to be about 48
exactly.
hours.
Yeah,
It's the same
right.
basic concept.
So
I
what
was
Robinhood?
primarily referring to when they halted buying on the stocks. I don't know if you saw that, but there was a
Oh
moment
yeah,
that people could only sell.
yeah,
That was the one that seemed like that pissed people off the most.
yeah. So I've ever seen. Those are called circuit breakers.
Okay.
The only time you do circuit breakers, to my knowledge, is when is when a stock is going down. So if you were investing or trading back in like this is just my experience back in March, what ended up happening was for every like 10% or something like that, if the stock goes down, if the SPY goes down
Yeah.
10% in a day, they'll do a circuit breaker where they'll like halt trading for a little bit, and then I think it goes down if I think if it goes down to a certain percentage, it's like cancel trading. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on
Yeah.
that for the day, but if it goes down a certain, they'll halt it. So it's just a measure for when things are crashing, right? So
Okay.
um,
Gotcha.
but I have never heard of a circuit breaker that goes up. So
That's what I was curious about. Yeah, that makes
yeah, so
sense.
like,
I understand, like, if everything's crashing, they want to stop it from going under completely and everything
exactly,
burning. But if it's going up, seems like a weird time to put a cap on. You know what I mean? I don't mean to keep
yeah,
using the term cap, but that seems like the proper term. Like they keep like,
yeah, they keep pausing
yeah,
trading. Yeah, so um, the only time to halt a stock that I know of is when there's like explicit fraud, like fraud
mm,
that clearly like this can't be disputed. So Enron or WorldCom, I believe there's a company called like Wirecard in like Germany
or
that I don't know if
unsophisticated investors.
they yeah yeah when they're losing money, right? So
Right.
that's the only time like the exchanges can halt the stock. So I don't know what was happening here, but I've just never seen um, like a stock be halted from it going up. But the only people that was hurting was
Robinhood users specifically.
not Robinhood users. It's hurting the Citadel who pays
Okay.
for
Gotcha.
Robinhood, right? Yeah. So they're the clearinghouse for Robinhood. So uh, I believe they're the clearinghouse for Robinhood. But anyway, that's like that's who it's hurting. Like nobody on the retail side is losing from the stock going up. Like when Tesla's gapping up like crazy, like no one's mad. Like they're in on it too. Like no one's
Yeah.
complaining. No one's halting the stock when it's going up 20-30% in a day. But when GME is going up 100%, 200% a day, like yeah, that they seem to care and it's worth halting. But yeah, Robinhood's excuse is they don't have the funds to available to clear all the purchasing that's going on, so they
Mm,
just
okay.
delete the buy button. But to go as far as to not make the stock be searchable, to have a list of stocks
Yeah.
that that's pretty I don't
Oh yeah. They're working against it a little bit.
know. Yeah,
Am I allowed to
yeah.
say that legally?
Oh yeah, I mean
Okay. Well, they're
that's your
definitely
reason.
cheating the fucking system then.
Yeah, I mean
I just don't want Robinhood
that's
coming at me. I've
that
seen that
no, that's your
motherfucker with a
opinion.
bow, and
It's freedom.
I'm not invasive.
Yeah, yeah. So that's basically what's going on. Uh, yeah, I'm very curious what will happen with something like Robinhood. I don't know if people. I'm personally leaving it, but I was leaving it before like this
Yeah,
whole
you
thing
found out they
happened.
were
Yeah.
playing with your money a little bit, which is a good enough reason to get off of anything. Not in a negative
Oh,
way, playing with your money. It seems like it would be more beneficial to trade through other sites where you don't have to worry about.
yeah. I just wanted to move.
Yeah,
I wanted to move and like yeah. I'm not trying to get front ran. You know, that shit's
I
whack.
understand. Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's
like
interesting.
for the average person, like um, Robinhood's fine. But at this point, I really want. I'm very curious how the PR turns out.
Oh yeah, this is a rough one for him. It's one of those
Yeah.
situations where I feel like one of the reasons that I specifically was excited to talk to you about this subject was I feel like a lot of people are getting into this subject for the first time right now. Like you
Hmm.
said, I feel like if nothing else, this situation has opened people's eyes and given a very clear example of I don't know, classism. I don't know. People are interpreting it in their own way. I don't really know necessarily how to interpret it, but it feels like the divide between the people on top and the people on the bottom is getting a lot further and further away, and
Hmm.
it's really interesting to see because it's it's almost ironic that it's through their own game Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because I don't mean to use terms like there, right? I'm only saying that because I've never traded in stocks. So when I say that, I'm just generalizing anybody who trades at all whatsoever. But
It is their game. We're unsophisticated.
exactly, generally speaking, we're
Yeah.
we're the novice people in this situation. So it's really interesting to me to see it play out. But there's also that part of me that's that's why I asked you earlier about the possibility of people losing money, because it is turning into quite a revolution. And I feel like some people are treating this like you said, the YOLO mindset is very much there with the stocks, and I can see it. And it feels like a lot of people are almost treating this like they're trying to put their hand in between the ceiling fan and not get hit by the blade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just kind of dumping in and pulling out real quick, trying to make a quick profit off of it. And
Yeah.
it's working for them right now, so I don't mind. But there's always that concern that somebody's going to get in over their head and system's going to crash. And oh no.
Hey, I saw Wall Street bets go from 2 million to 7 million in 1 week. So they're in the right place for
Oh yeah.
they call them lost porn. So they're in the right place for those else. Um, Nonetheless, like if I do think I hate to use their phrase, but the democratization of finance by that's like Robin Hood's slogan. I do believe that at the end of the day, like everybody that starts out investing or trading, the term is you always have to pay your tuition to the market. Like I paid my tuition when
Yep.
I shorted the stock market back in December 24th, 2018, and paid the price, lost 75% of my portfolio, right, on that one trade. So, um, yeah, people will learn the hard way. Like I may sound sort of,
It's true. It sounds harsh,
yeah,
but it's true. It's
yeah,
it's real money that you're playing with. It's not a game as much as it feels like it is. Like if it's something that you can't afford to jump into, then you should absolutely refrain from doing it,
yeah,
regardless of how much of a revolution it feels like. If you don't have money to lose, you don't have money to play.
yeah. And people can, so those that are new to this, they can paper trade. So if you have, whether on Webull or TD Ameritrade, those are the ones I know of. You can paper trade, which is when you trade with fake money or invest with fake money.
Like it's like a
Um,
simulation.
yeah, simulation trading.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So
Although that would suck to do really well in your simulation and look over and be like, man, if I'd have put that money in for real.
yeah, should have would have cut it. I'm trying to remove that
Right
out of
now, yeah.
my language, but like yeah, I for a lot of people, me included, for a long time I didn't do paper trading because um I I like the heart attacks, man. I like the heart attacks of like feeling it for real. So you can put money into a lot of investing or trading is psychological. And it's like uh this is another topic. It's like CNBC is the old is like the Wall Street bets of the previous generation, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah,
someone like
Mad
Bill.
Money.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yep.
remember. I remember when 2008 when Bear Stearns was crashing. I remember a caller calling in and asking like I don't remember that as a kid, but like I remember I
Yeah.
remember seeing this. A caller calls in asks Jim Cramer that hey, like I want to sell Bear Stearns at 60, and he goes, you'd be a fool to sell at 60. I remember I'm paraphrasing, like like I already talked, but like you'd be an idiot to sell at 60, and then Bear Stearns goes down to 2. That was someone's livelihood. So
Yeah.
what's the difference between what they're doing now and like why isn't anyone telling them, oh, like what you're saying can get people hurt? Like what's the difference between what they're doing now and what's going on with Wall Street bets, where clearly everybody understands the risk, but they're choosing to get in anyways, right?
Yeah.
At least the people that are coming in from the Wall Street bet side, right? So CNBC's been doing it for a long time. A guy named Bill Ackman, he's a hedge fund manager. He goes on CNBC and talks about how like I think pre-pandemic talks about how like things are gonna crash and so forth. Like, and he's right. Lo and behold, this dude had like 26 million in
Yep.
puts or
Yeah, I
like
heard about
shorts,
that. Yeah.
and he made like 27 billion or something like that, or
Wow.
like 2 point. No, I'm sorry, he made 2.6 billion. It was a
Oh, that's it.
26 million trade that turned. Like, look at the return on that, dude. But like
Yeah.
going on TV and talking about like, like I think everything's gonna close out, which like he was right. The same way the Wall Street bets, everybody did their due diligence and it ended up
Yeah.
going up, and everybody's trying to find like what's the difference, right? But my point is, you ask the question, are people gonna get hurt? Like, yeah, people get hurt, but um, as messed up as it sounds, like that's the market. Like,
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you win on a trade, you lose on a trade.
That's an interesting situation. I don't have anything in it, so it's an interesting thing for me to sit back and
Yeah.
watch. But I do know a lot of people who are getting in for the first time, so I wanted to make sure while I had somebody who kind of knew what they were talking about to give people their fair warning. If you're watching from afar and you're thinking about jumping in, like
Oh
still
yeah.
the stock market, shit still happens, and
Yeah.
jump in
No.
if you feel comfortable, but don't feel like you got to right now, or feel like you got to. I don't know. I feel like I'm going against the revolution when I say something like that. I feel like later tonight I'm gonna have a bunch of people outside with pitchforks and stuff yelling at me, like "Eat the
That's hilarious.
rich." All right, I will when we're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. I mean, to go back to what you mentioned with like uh, the wealth gap, that's something that's been brewing for a while. In fact, the main reason
Yep.
we were going to talk about the article, but then in that article, there's that section called "Niggas is Broke," and it breaks down how like most people do not have money. Like that was a big part about personally why I left the film industry. Like it just doesn't make sense. And in
Yeah.
an age in my 20s when there's just so much opportunity out there, one of them being finance and investing and so forth. That's something that really fascinates me. But um, there's a stat in that article where it goes, what is it? What I think eight out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck. That's from I think career something, career connect or something like that. Career, the
I'm fact
source is
checking it
there.
right now. I had that part of the article already pulled up because we spoke about it ahead of
Yeah,
time.
so
So
80%, 8 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people can't survive. I think only 40% of people can survive uh, uh, like
if
a
an
$1,000
emergency came up
emergency.
for $1,000 and
Yeah,
more, yeah.
like a lot of people are like that. So I do think the democratization of finance is a good thing, but that's been brewing for a while. We mentioned regulation and so forth. That's being thrown around a lot, which I do think will happen. But Janet Yellen, the Treasury counsel, who used to be the Fed, I believe. Uh, no, it wasn't. She wasn't the head of the Fed during Obama, but she's been previously in charge of the Fed, and she takes speaking fees from Citadel. Like, and these speaking fees are just a fancy word for bribes. So
Yeah.
like, if regulation does come, it's not going to be in our favor, right? So it's like, yeah,
No,
this has
absolutely.
been brewing for a while. Like, I think people have been angry for a long time, and this is the one event that people have unity behind, and so that's why it's so powerful. But yeah, in terms of like that wealth gap, that thing's getting ridiculous. I think in that same article there's a stat that goes like the middle class is disappearing. Um,
Oh, basically. Yeah, well, because
yeah,
the difference is the 1% takes up so much of the wealth in this country. If your article is correct, the top
yeah,
10% own 90% of the stock market,
yeah, yeah.
which
I
is
think
fucking ridiculous
I
to
think it's
think
eighty
about.
percent.
80%, my
Yeah,
apologies. I didn't mean to short you guys that last
no,
10%
it's
there. Um,
fine.
but basically, it's really interesting because you've seen socially over the last few years, you've seen a lot of movements grow really big, and a lot of them are jokes. And this feels like the first. I don't want to say joke movement, but it is a little bit of a joke movement. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of irony in the fact that it's GameStop. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
this
power to the
company
players.
that's yeah, exactly. Good for
Yeah,
them. I know,
I
but
think you might
it's
be
it's
right.
a
90%, 90%. Sorry, but go on.
oh
I
yeah,
think you might be right.
I got my
90%.
shit. I did my fact checking.
Yeah, I
You
think
came with
I was
all
thinking
the
about it.
stock information, and I read a
Yeah, you're
paragraph of
right.
your article. So,
Yeah, you're right. 90%.
um,
I was thinking about it
but
wrong.
uh, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating to see because I mean, like something is goofy, but the storming Area 51, right? It was a similar concept. It was we want to see what's going on with the aliens, and it's a
Yeah.
joke and it's ironic, but then you see how much traction it got. And
Yeah.
obviously, luckily, people didn't actually storm Area 51,
Mhm.
but you can trade from home, right? You don't got
Oh
to
yeah.
drive out to Area 51 in this situation. So people were seeing it, and there was a little bit of that similar, like, what are they going to do to us? What are they going to arrest us? There's so many of us in this situation that if we pull it off, shit. You know what I mean? So it's just really
Yeah.
fascinating to me to kind of see how the culture's been bubbling up a little bit.
Mhm.
And so far it's been kind of subdued. But in this situation, it kind of hit them when they weren't ready. And it's just a really fascinating response. And I think it's going to expose a lot of things for a lot of people. And unfortunately, I think once the toothpaste is out of the container, you can't put it back in. And
Yeah.
to me, that's the benefit of this situation, just like it being exposed for a lot of people. Because for a lot of people, like it's very difficult to point at what people are doing to screw you over. So I think that when something like this happens and it's being laid out in front of people very simply,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing because they're never going to go back to a world where they haven't seen this, right? Like the
Yeah.
people who were around when Nixon was in office, they know a president can be corrupt, right? Because
Yeah.
they've seen something happen. They've seen that gentleman get impeached. So in their world, that's a reality. Well, if you
Yeah.
were born after Nixon, you've never seen anything like that. You've seen people
Yeah.
maybe on impeachment trial or whatever the case is,
Mhm.
but that idea is so far-fetched that it's almost like not even a reality anymore, which is slightly dangerous, of course, because, you know, you should definitely do your research in history, but this is something that's being so, like, it's being so highly spoken about, which is a little bit shocking to me because I kind of thought that it was going to get buried in the news cycle. Like, I know it's hard not to, but it felt like for a second they weren't going to really get into it the way that they should have. Like, they were going to kind of just gloss over the subject.
Yeah.
But it got so big that they couldn't ignore it anymore. And that's a fucking beautiful thing to me because, like I said, if nothing else, there are people out there with their eyes open now. And
Yeah, and that's
it's great.
what we brought up. It's like the hashtag force the vote then, or just the longer we hold, the more it gets covered. Like the more people get pissed, because you know it's again it's class warfare at this point. It's the poor versus the rich. Like I'm not talking like someone that makes several million. We're talking like
Yeah.
the uber rich. We're talking about
No, we're talking
like
about the people who are,
like they're eating real
Koch
good.
brothers.
Yeah, right. So
Jeff Bezos. Just
yeah.
so I'm playing both ends of the aisle.
Yeah, so in that sense, it's just it's very easy for them to head up the media because they have like someone made the joke. I think his name's Tom Nash on YouTube. He said MSM, which is like mainstream media, stands for main sponsored media, right? So it's
Right.
very easy for them to call them up and start like, oh, like
That Epstein situation, that article that they wrote about him, it was basically just a Bachelor ad. I forgot what the magazine was. I can look into it, but it was a very big one. It was in that documentary on Netflix, and he basically just paid to get 2 pages of "I'm single" in there.
yeah, I think I remember something like that. I don't
I
remember. I
forgot
don't
what
have
it
the
was.
source, but
Variety or whatever. I can
yeah.
double check to see what the article was.
Fires
But
would
it was
come
just
after you
really,
like, hey, it wasn't us.
yeah, it was not us. But it's just really interesting because in that situation, like, you don't think about something like that, but he had the money to just put out like that's the best Bachelor ad of all time.
Yeah.
Right? It's in like one of the most highly publications in the country, and it's just talking about how great you are and you're this incredible humanitarian and how you're single. That was specifically noted in there. I believe that was part of the title, if I remember correctly. And when you see something like that, like, I don't know, it's just, I think when you see stuff like that, it really helps. Do you know what I mean? Because I think now that people know some other things about him, it's something that they'll pay attention to more. But it made me personally look twice at some of the articles that I read about people that are putting them over. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So basically,
generally speaking.
what what's that guy's name? He's a comedian, George Carlin. What he says, question everything. So
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
what you're saying. Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
summarizes
absolutely.
that.
It's
Yeah.
a perfect
So
person to quote in this situation. He would be great to have right now.
oh yeah, I mean the funny thing to go back to the topic of people being um, uh, awakened by this. I use that word, but people being woke by this. Or it, I'll usually joke with my friends that start realizing how things actually work. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're finally taking the blue pill in the Matrix. I think that's the right pill, the blue one. But in this case, like when I first started investing, I always tell my friends, well, not I tell them, like they know I'm very jaded when it comes to politics or when it comes to situations like this where a lot of this stuff doesn't phase me because I've only invested in trading for like 2.5 years and like I haven't seen it all, but it seems like I've seen it all. Like when it comes to politicians or
It's been a crazy last few years. You've been in the
yeah,
most
right.
interesting time for sure.
Yeah. So, like one of the first things that I was curious about was like learn about the military-industrial complex, right? Just like that just wakes you up, like oh, like we make these, you know, these bloated military budgets go right back to Boeing, Raytheon, Halliburton, Northrop Grumman, right? So like if you own those stocks, you're eating good off the government, you're eating good off the back of the American people, you know. So,
Yeah, war
but
is
then the
profitable.
War is very profitable. There's a great book, War is a Racket, that I really like by Smedley Butler. but there's like the education budget's always small, or like our infrastructure budget's always small. But anything that pertains to the stock market has, like, back in March, like on Wall Street Bets, the I forgot his nickname, but Jay Powell, that's Jay Powell, Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve. I think what um like the banks were getting a trillion per day, but back for 14 days straight back in March. Right?
Yeah,
But
when
like,
everything
what were
first
we getting?
crashed.
They
Yeah.
were debating 1200, just like they were
Yeah.
debating that. That was the debate, right? So, but like without any question, the
That was in
banks were.
consecutive days too, you said, if I remember correctly. That
Oh
was
yeah, 14 days straight,
multiple
a
trillions.
trillion
That
a
wasn't
day,
just
just
wasn't
a
1
day.
trillion one time. That was roughly $14 trillion.
Yeah, and that was a time that was very hard for me to trade because I just couldn't believe it. That's why I'm jaded at this point, but at that
Yeah.
time I could not believe it. Like I it was very hard for me to be long. But I'm just because like, bro, like we have like very high death rates, even though this is just started. Uh, our politicians don't seem to agree on everything. We're shutting down the small businesses. That's a larger political debate. And like we're not taking care of the people. There's nothing. So unemployment's high. Like it's about to get even higher. I just
Yeah.
couldn't believe like every day the stock market would just
Just dumping in a
be up,
trillion.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like that goes right back into the markets, and that's how
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
is turned into like uh, a whole game at this point. Like this is what happens when there's that much liquidity in the markets, So, um,
Death is
yeah, you
profit.
get what was that?
Death is profit.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another conversation. Yeah. Um. Uh. At this point, I don't know. I'm just saying. All I'm saying here is that I'm at that point where you know there's this quote like the markets are irrational. Like they don't. You can have like a company beat their earnings, beat on revenues, and then still go down on earnings. So um, I'm at that point where like I nothing really phases me. I just kind of gauge my risk and proceed cautiously. But yeah, I'm glad that people are being awakened because like a lot of this stuff was a shock. Like your heroes, they're not heroes.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to get into we can get into specifics if you want, but like I've had my world shattered like what summer of 2018. That's when I started learning about this stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad
It's
people are starting
crazy.
to wake up, get their world shattered too.
No, I agree completely. And I think that the internet makes it an unstoppable force because, I mean, you get free open conversations like this. Uh,
Yeah.
you get great advice. You get some horrible advice as well. But look at how this whole situation turned out. There are quite a few people who look at the Dogecoin, man. There were some people that night who got to eat some like $60, and they're just
Yeah.
looking at it like, shit. Maybe this is something I should think about in the future. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like to me, that's the beautiful part of the situation is like
Yeah.
it kind of made it mainstream for a moment, and that's really interesting. And I'm sure the people in the stock market hate that because this isn't something you really want to get mainstream. They're quite the hipster community, them investor types. They don't want anybody to know about their cool shit.
Yeah.
So this
That's
is the
funny.
one thing that I'm really happy with going mainstream because if people realized how much power they had, like look at the strength of what's it at right now?
GME.
GME, yeah,
Last I checked, it was at like 301.
and it
But
was
I mean,
4% starting off
um,
or $4
like the
starting off.
stock. Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
went as low as
4%.
$3. But let me pull it up. GME 325 last night. Like that's the quote
Okay.
I'm getting. Yeah, 325. So
So look at that.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And
beautiful.
oh yeah. I mean to quote you, and for anyone that's new and thinking about investing that made $60 on Doge, I do believe that personally, I usually tell my friends, and something I do for myself is I don't necessarily look at the dollar amount that you made, look at the percentage, right? So if you only put in $100 and you made 100, you're like, oh, it's not a lot of money, or you get the mindset of like, I'm gonna hold longer because
Yeah,
it's only $100, it'll go up more. Like that's 100% return. Like
absolutely. Yeah,
hedge
that's crazy.
funds
Yeah.
would be lucky if they made like like the market goes up. What the like that's I think it goes up like 25% like per year. So you just beat the S&P 500 on that particular trade or that particular investment. So yeah, look at the percentage, and I do think it is a beautiful thing. That's why I appreciate the market so much. It's I always tell my friends it allows you to it allows you to know more. So like the Tesla investors of last year and prior, Kathy Wood, the people that follow Kathy Wood, Palihapitiya, like they've realized the electric revolution way before the average person knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You know, they've if you're familiar, like companies like SoFi, like you understand the finance revolution that's going on. You know, right? So I think the markets just make you aware, and I think it's a beautiful. I mean, look at fucking sorry, look at deep fucking value before like last year he was doing his fundamental analysis thinking like he had foresight. This dude was thinking. I, I think in an article he said there was an article published on him, and he said like I didn't know it would happen like this, but like he knew he was at least gonna get the stock to go to $20, and that would have been a very nice return from him.
Hell yeah.
For him, right?
You said 325.
Oh, he's a millionaire. Like
Yeah.
I think when it's all said and done, it's very easy, very realistic for him to be at 100 million, if we keep driving higher, right? So
Dang.
I mean, his cost per basis was around like at its lows, but like $3 or $4. Like for every $6, he's getting like 100% return. So think about
That's a
that.
happy person.
Every
That's a
$6,
happy person.
yeah, and every $7, the hedge funds lose $1 billion. You know, so it's beautiful.
Hey, that's nice.
Yeah.
Do you think that people would be as willing? This is one of the last things. Do you think people would be as excited about this if it was just an opportunity to make money, or do you think that this is overwhelmingly a go fuck yourself?
Oh, I think the latter.
Overwhelmingly. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. That's all I needed to hear. I just needed to know that's where we're at.
I made profit on this thing, and then because I was late, but around 90, I bought options, and it was profitable on it. The next day went from 90 to 350.
Yeah.
So I made money off that, and then I took some of that money and then just bought the stock at a very bad cost base. I bought like 366. So like I'm losing money right now. The stock would need to trap. You guys gonna need to come get me at 366 because I'm losing money. But the thing is like it's also an FU. Just as like yeah, you know we're all YOLO veterans at this point. Like, the joke I keep making is that like I want to tell my kids that their dad was involved in the wars. Yeah.
I'm sure people who served in the military are gonna love that.
Oh, that's funny.
They're basically the same thing.
It is, but still.
I got stuck there for a second. I looked down at my dictionary. We had a nice pause.
That's funny.
Which to that, I wanted to read you something real quick because I don't know if people knew this. This is totally off topic, but I had to throw this in there while I'm on video because I wanted to see your face when you found out. So I was looking at a dictionary earlier. I just felt like doing some reading, and I don't know what a lot of words mean, so this felt like the book to read. And I found out incest. It's a noun, and the definition is it's intercourse between closely related persons. Such intercourse, when considered, is a crime. So, for all you people who watch that shit on the internet, stop. It's illegal. It says so right here. It's a fucking crime. I can show it to you on camera. I just had to do this one while we had a video to actually show it. Can you see?
I can't see. I can see now.
Okay. It says a crime.
It's funny.
So, while you were giving very good sound financial advice, I want people not to get arrested for, it's a very popular subcategory, man.
Yeah, there should be regulation on that.
Oh, here we go with this fucking regulation shit again. Always trying to keep the little guy down.
That's hilarious.
But no, man, I appreciate you coming on and explaining some of this information to me because I was happy because I could tell it was something that was being done to stick it to the big guy, but it was also confusing. So I appreciate you having come in and elaborated some of these details for me because I was slightly lost on the whole situation, and I feel like a lot of people share that sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned once the toothpaste is out of the bottle. Is that what you said?
Yeah, once it's out of the whatever you got it in.
Container thing.
Yeah.
The squishy.
Really, it's a good one. The toothpaste is so squishy.
Yeah.
Even if you tried, like you got the hole to put it back in, but
yeah. Yeah. So that's something that's extremely relevant here. I do believe something my dad told me when I was younger, and we talk about this all the time, is that he said, like Ghana being a very like Christian country, um, when it comes to religion, he told me when I was a kid that um, the everything that is in the Bible just keeps like everything in the world just keep reinventing itself. So everything that has happened is in the Bible somewhere. You can find some sort of parallel to it, like some parable in the Bible, right? So, and he says the internet is the tree of knowledge and power of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, right? So, once you can use it for good or you can use it for bad, right? But in the end, you still have access to it, and that's if that was if if that tree has been remanifested as the internet now, there's I at least for our generation, the beauty of that is that someone like me can like the stuff you say is complicated to me is not very complicated at all. I think they want you to think it's complicated. They want you. But it's really the same way they get on TV, start calling you unsophisticated and so forth. It's extreme. It's not complicated. Like a bunch of Wall Street bets goons can get on, like figure this shit out. And I'm not saying you'll be profitable. I'm not telling you to. But it's like at the end of the day, like hedge funds don't need to exist anymore. Like people can figure this shit out for themselves. The same way like the movie industry used to have a monopoly on content, like now we have YouTube, right? So
SideTrak'd available on all major podcasting platforms.
Exactly, right? That's a beautiful thing. And the the point that I'm trying to say is I think it's a extremely something I don't take for granted. Like I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to just look something up online rather than like having to. If I want to learn this stuff, I have to go to a library.
Yeah,
and
get
then
to know somebody who understands it.
Exactly.
Some information from you. I remember when you first started trading, the first thing you told me was Discord.
Yeah.
Just go talk to people who know what the fuck they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, that was
right? Like it makes me feel 1,000 times better about it, and I think that open communication has helped a lot of people in a lot of areas.
Exactly. That was my first Wall Street bets was Discord. Like I saw off this guy Ricky Gutierrez, and then he just wasn't doing it for me, so that moved on to the next thing, which was like options, and I just learned on my own. There are plenty of people online that can teach you. If you want to learn long-term investing, there's plenty. You can read. I think The Intelligent Investor. You can read Value Investing by Ben Graham. I think Benjamin Graham. That's the person that taught Warren Buffett. I don't think his book's called Value Investing, but you just look this stuff up. It's like it's all right there. You can go to YouTube, find someone like Tom Nash, like Oswald and Motorin, like find Professor Scott Galloway, and just to learn, right? And all this stuff's available for free. That's the beautiful thing. And so that's this whole revolution that's happening. I really don't know how it's gonna end, but like I'm just grateful that we live in a time where it's things like this will happen and will continue to happen until there's great change. And in the meantime, people can grow by just educating themselves. So
I agree. I feel like the next year, even, we're gonna see this grow. I don't know what this is, but we're gonna see it grow, and it's gonna be fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Crystal Ball, who's a host on The Hill, The Rising, which is done by The Hill on YouTube, she said, I think she heard it from someone else, but she said a quote I really like. She said, people don't know. Oh, fuck, I messed up the quote. I don't remember, but it's something along the lines that like you don't know your restrictions until you don't know that you're chained until you try moving. I think that's what a lot of people are realizing. Like they're just trying to make money, and like all these like people, they're throwing the whole book at you as you just try to make money. What they're not talking about is the people that are the Wall Street bettors that are talking about. Someone's fixing their dad's roof. Someone can pay for his mom's Lyme's disease procedure. Someone paid for his student debt. Someone what was it? There's an interview with Tom Nash. He had a person on that his dad and his entire family actually had to move back to, well, not back to, but his family, I think they're English, settled in the U.S. But then after 2008, they lost everything, had to move to China, and they have yet to relocate back, the entire family. And he's up $1 million, and he refuses to sell because for him it's personal. But like
Yeah.
this is life-changing money for him. But it's
Yeah.
personal, right? But if whenever he decides to sell, I hope he sells profitably. Like
Yeah, me
he
too.
said his dad doesn't have to work anymore. His dad can come back home. Like this is like life-changing. This is life-changing stuff. They don't talk about that, but nonetheless, it's still like he did the research. He got in at the right time. He deserves to have that money if he sells profitably. That's how I see it. Like this is an open market, buyers and sellers. That's
He is
all
a
it is.
lazy communist.
That's funny. Yeah. So.
He needs to work for his money, and then he'll work hard.
That's funny. Yeah.
And I'll
so,
pour into his company, and I'll sit at
hilarious.
home and chill. But he needs to stop asking for handouts, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, people are getting their handout money back from
Good.
from the market right now. So I hope.
Well, I like it. They're not keeping their hand and slightly or patiently waiting for it. They're just kind of snatching at their own right now. And I think sometimes you got to do it that way.
I like that. I like that.
Hey, my man, I appreciate you coming on here. It was an excellent conversation. I feel like I learned a lot in this situation. You got anything you want to plug or promote here at the end?
Nothing. I don't have any.
Okay, well, I'm going to do it for you then, you humble bastard. You quoted an article a few times in this conversation. It was an article that you wrote for Medium.com. It's Creative Equity and the New Media Diet, How COVID-19 Accelerated the Inevitable for Hollywood. Kojo wrote it a few months ago. It's worth the read. He's got a lot of fun information in there about a few other things than just what we kind of talked about today, but there's a paragraph in there. Covers that pretty well. I said, fellas be broke.
Yeah.
Is that the title of it?
Fellas
be broke.
Let's call it
specifically.
That,
yeah, we'll call it that one. We want this to be an inclusive article, Kojo.
Of course.
But no, man, I appreciate you having this conversation with me here.
Yeah, man. And I guess the last thing I'll say is, I guess this is what it's about too. You being able to have a podcast. I remember us talking about stuff like this in like high school, and I know you're just getting started, but shout out to you. I always want to be on your podcast, even though it's like brand new. But like 2 people will listen to this. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's just having live in a world where anyone can create, anyone has access to whatever they need to do.
Absolutely.
And that's what the internet's brought, and like you're using it to your advantage. So shout out to you, and not sit on the sidelines and talking about it all the time and not actually doing it. So I
appreciate
truly respect that. Yeah. Well
to
done.
anybody who's seeing it, by the way, it's easy as hell. I'm not smart, right? Like I'm not the brightest person in the world, and my audio sounds all right. The video looks all right, and I have a thing, and some people listen and they've said that they liked it. So I'm a very happy person in this situation. So if you're ever thinking about doing anything in life, go on the internet and learn about it. That's the lesson that you. Where's the camera at? Right here? Do I look at the light or do I look at the circle? If I look at the circle, I feel like I'm making eye contact with people, and then I get nervous and sweaty because I feel like they're staring into my soul. So I'm going to stare at the light here. If you guys have any dreams in the world, just like Kojo just said, pull up your fucking phone and research that shit, because you can get the exact same education on your phone that you can at a college university. College is a scam. College is a scam. No, it's cool. There's a lot of good networking opportunities, and there's a lot of great mentors and all that other kind of stuff. I don't really have a way to end it, so I'm just bullshitting here at the end and having fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, if my dumbass can learn how to invest and be profitable, like anyone else can.
I know, that's true. He didn't even put on an undershirt for this. I've seen his chest way too many times in this conversation, and he's been making money on this whole process, and he didn't even figure out that that'll chafe your nipples. Wearing a dress shirt with no undershirt. You're going to have some raw-ass nipples after this conversation. I appreciate you dressing up for it quite a bit, but your nipples are going to be raw. I don't think it was worth it.
That's hilarious. Nah. But, yeah, seriously. I think a lot of people just need to do what they need to do, So, like, yeah, like, you have all the tools. Go do it. But, we'll see. I think it's an exciting time, and I'm excited to see all the changes that happen.
Absolutely. Well, with this opportunity, I'd like to thank you for checking out my podcast. My name is Dennis Kaminsky. Thank you to Kojo Owusu for being my guest here today. And I don't have an ending tagline, so I'm going to make one up for the day. incest porn is illegal.